What's up, Nakamas? We are back with some updated Nami list today. So just a quick refresher, Nami is a blue leader in One Piece, and she's one of the first leaders, if not the only leader, that has an alternate win condition. So when your deck reaches 0 cards, you win the match instead of losing it. Then you can add 1 Dawn to her, and when your opponent takes damage to their life through the attack of this leader, you may trash 1 card from the top of your deck. So for this video, we're gonna go through the deck list, the updated list that I have, and I'll be showing a game on how I pilot this version. In my original Nami list, I was not running this card, and I wanted to give it another chance. So this is an update that we got from OP-06. It's a new card, White Snake. It's a blue event that costs 2 and it has a counter that up to one of your leaders or characters gain 1000 for this turn. Then you draw a card. So it's comparable to cards like Love Love Beam. However, it doesn't have a condition to draw. You're always going to be drawing a card for this. And one thing to take note here is that most of the counters that we have in Nami deck is only applicable to giving plus 4000 for that battle only. But for White Snake, the 1000 buff, is applicable for the entire turn. So just a quick note to everyone. Then it has a trigger that look at the top 5 cards of your deck, then place them in any order at the top or bottom of the deck. So Nami is an event-heavy deck. So I'll discuss the events first. So first things first, we have Gum Gum Gavel. I think in English it's a rubber sledgehammer. I personally think this is one of the all-stars in the deck. It does basically a lot of things that we want. So it's a 1-drop. It has a counter that you need to discard 1 card from your hand. And up to one of your leader gains 4k during this battle. Then you may put 2 cards from the top of your deck into your trash. This card is only applicable to your leader because some of our pump spells are applicable to a leader or a character. It has a trigger that we return 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to its owner's hand. Next is Usopp's Rubber Band. It has a counter that up to one of your leaders or characters get plus 2000 power during this battle. Then you may put the top card of your deck into your trash. It has a trigger that you may draw 1 card and place the top card of your deck into your trash. So either way, it's trashing a card from the top of our deck, whether it is via counter or via trigger. I really like this card. Next is Desert Spada. It has a counter that your leader or one of your characters plus 2000 power this battle. Then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, return them at the top or bottom of the deck in any order. Please take note that it's not the same as like Scry in Magic, wherein, for example, you have Scry 3, you can put the top 2 cards at the top, 1 card at the bottom. So Desert Spada, you choose if it's top or bottom, and then you change the order. Then it has a trigger that you draw 2 cards and trash 1 card from your hand. Still, that's like 2 cards are removed from your deck, so this is a pretty good card. Next, we have our 2-cost events. So I'm running 4 copies of Love Love Beam. It is a 2-cost counter. Your leader or up to one of your characters gain 4000 power during the battle. Then if you have 3 cards or less in your hand, you draw a card. Next is Overheat. So Overheat is a card that I sometimes put in the deck and sometimes I remove in the deck. So it's basically like a flex spot. And depending on the meta game, I usually change this into, let's say, for example, 2 Buggies or 2 Nojikos. So Overheat is a blue event that has a counter. Your leader or one of your characters gain 4000 power during this battle. Then return 1 active character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. Then it has a trigger that you can return 1 card with a cost of 4 or less. It's usually to recycle Kaya, to return it to our hand as a 2k counter in the late game, or we can bounce Mr. 1 to recycle its effect. We are running 4 copies of Arabesque Brick Fist. It has a main effect of returning one character with a cost of 4 or less to its owner's hand, and the trigger is basically the same effect. Then we have our 3 cost or more events. Sanji's Pilaf, it's basically a divination. So it's a 3 cost, draw 2 cards. As for the trigger, you still draw 2 cards. Next is Impel Down All-Stars, although this is a 1 cost, but I put it in this category because the main for this card is not playable. So we don't care about the main for this card, we only care about the trigger of this card, which is same as Sanji's Pilaf, we draw 2 cards. So just a piece of advice, almost all of the time, if you draw this in your opening hand, try to mulligan it. And for our last event, it's Deathwink. It has a counter that up to one of your characters or your leader get plus 6k during this battle. Then you draw cards until you have 2 cards in your hand. So the ideal situation is we want this to be the last card that we cast from our hand. That way we're going to be drawing 2 cards. Then it has a trigger that you can return up to 1 character with a cost of 7 or less to its owner's hand. For our characters, we are running Kaya. She's basically a staple in all Nami decks. She's a 1 cost, 0 attack, but she's a 2000 power, and she has a very strong on-play effect that's really suitable for Nami. Next is Mr. 1, another 1 cost with 1k power this time. Then on play, you add up to 1 blue event card with a cost of exactly 1 from your trash to your hand. We have Zeff, a 5-drop with 6k attack, 1k counter attached to this card. So add 1 Dawn to this, and when this character deals damage to your opponent's life, you trash 7 cards from the top of your deck. Then it also has a very strong on-play effect that you get to return 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to its owner's hand. Then you trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. So that's my updated list for Nami. Let's see this deck in action. Okay, so we're definitely playing second. This is an auto mulligan because we have Impel Down All-Stars. So let's play. So we're playing against a Reiju, a very strong card. There's actually a lot of people playing her in my local game stores. So I'm excited to play against her here. Just to test Nami, because this is definitely a realistic matchup for me to play test her. So we have a pretty awkward hand here. We only have 1 counter event, so let's just not do anything. So the strength of a Reiju deck is that she can draw cards really fast. So no need to take, no need to counter. So we just don't use the trigger here. So we drew another Brick Fist. That's definitely not what we want. So let's just end the turn here. Our hand is really pretty awkward. We can't use Sanji's Pilaf because that would leave us to 1 open Dawn, and we don't have any 1 cost. So as much as I want to save White Snake in the late game, like if our opponent has multiple attackers, just to maximize his effect, with this pretty bad hand, I think it's okay to just use this card to cycle. So cycle, yep, okay, we draw an Usopp's rubber band. Let's use that. Milling a Desert Spada. Opponent uses a Reiju. As you can see here, using the -1 Dawn. It's pretty cool. So we can just bounce the Reiju here, just for tempo, and we can end the turn. So one thing, if you're playing Nami, just be patient. Your goal is to remove all of your cards in the library. So you need to keep on evaluating your options. If you need to save, for example, save a card to bounce your own characters in the late game, or save it to... So we can just use Zeff here because we don't have any one cost anyways to bounce with Zeff. Okay, we keep on drawing awkward hands, so let's just Pilaf here. We drew another Pilaf and another Impel Down All-Stars. It's tempting to use Pilaf, but it's okay. Let's just not use Pilaf. Let's just bounce Reiju here. We have 3 open Dawn. We can Gavel, and we can Love Beam, although we won't be able to maximize Love Beam's effect because we have many cards in our hand. We have 2 Impel Down All-Stars. We want to get rid of this, so hoping to draw a Kaya or another Gum Gum Gavel. Okay, 8k attack. So let's Gavel, discard an Impel Down All-Stars here. Of course, we need to mill. At this point, we can discard Mr. 1, but it's better to just draw. So we want to save the Gavel to discard the Impel Down All-Stars. So, and that's pretty cool. This is an 8k attack, so we can just save Nami here and not take damage. Oh, we drew another Gavel. That's pretty cool. So let's Pilaf. And we can drop Mr. 1 to get another Gavel. That way we'll have less cards in our hand and Deathwing becomes online. But for now, since we do have 2 Gavels, I opted not to play Mr. 1 so that I'll have more cards to discard for Gavels, because we definitely want to not discard our Love Beam and Deathwing, and we need 2 cards to discard because of 2 Gavels in our hand. So opponent playing Kaya just for the 2k counters and the discard. Really pretty cool, and the stage is really helping Reiju a lot here. So multiple activations of stage already. Our opponent dropped the stage very early. So let's Gavel here. Let's discard the Brick Fist. We can discard Mr. 1 to up to 10k, but I just opted to Love Beam here to draw an extra card, although that is not optimal because we're wasting 3 extra power, 3,000 extra 3,000. So let's Gavel again here, discarding Mr. 1. Then we can Kaya. That way we have 3 Dawn for a Deathwing. Let's Deathwing, draw 2 cards here. Always feels pretty good to do that. So let's Pilaf and deploy Kaya, draw 2 and discard 2. As much as I want to use Overheat, up to this point I'll just discard it, saving 2 White Snakes in our hand. So let's try to remove 1. That way we have 4 extra Dawn to cast our White Snakes. I think this is a pretty good scenario for White Snake, unlike what we used in the early game, wherein our opponent only has like 1 attacker. But for this point, multiple White Snakes can stack up So it's always good to use them in the late game where our opponent has a lot of like 5k blocker, 5k attackers. That way our opponent needs to waste some Dawn to just get over the plus 1k, like this one. Opponent leads with a 5k, so we can White Snake. So that 1000 will stay. So that's pretty cool. So let's White Snake again here. As you can see, the 2000 stays on Nami, but won't matter here because the last attacker is 7k, but our opponent can't just put a lot of Dawns on Kaya to attack us. So I think we're doing pretty well, given that we did have a pretty awkward opening hand. And we survive, and now we still have 3 cards in our hand. So let's just take here, use the trigger, draw a card, and trash 1 card, trashing our second Overheat. That's okay, we don't have any units at the moment. So let's just use 2k counter here from Kaya. So White Snake doing very good action there. So all of our opponent's units are costing 2 or more. I mean, are out of range for Brick Fist. So let's just attack with a 9k Nami here. Try to get rid of something, but our opponent is saving their units. So let's try to see what we can do here. We do have a lot of counters in our hand. And not to mention a White Snake. Which is like an extra 1k counter for every attacker that our opponent has. So it's really good in this particular situation. Let's White Snake first. Now we drew a Zeff. Let's Desert Spada here. I think I'm okay with keeping these in the top. So I opted to use them on top and putting Mr. 1 as the top card that we'll draw next turn. So let's just take that. Opponent attacking 11k. So we can love beam up to 10. Then we can Desert Spada here. It's basically the same. So I'll still use this on top. Then we can get a Gavel and discard the Impel Down All-Stars later, since that's the 3rd card from the top. So I can just take it here. So no triggers for Deathwing that will save us. So opponent didn't attack there. So we have 5 cards in our library at this point. Let's deploy and get a Gavel. So at this point, I think it's pretty much a win, because we can just bounce. You can use Zeff, bounce Mr. 1, crash cards. We have 3 cards in our hand at this point. And this is just pretty much overkill here. I intended to get a Gavel, but it doesn't matter. I misclicked there. Since we have a crash 1 card from Rubber Band and crash 2 cards from Gavel. So any attacks from our opponent here will reduce our library to 0 cards and we'll win. At this point, we're just waiting for our opponent with a massive 17,000 swing here, but doesn't matter, we can win. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this If you're still watching up to this point, you're not just a nakama, but a super nakama. So thank you very much for that. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe so that you'll be notified in my posts. So have a great day everyone, and see you in the next video.